Chicago, January 14, 1927, 8:12 p.m. Snow packed the gutters along South State Street, turned gray by coal smoke and boots. Inside the Regent Cafe, heat fogged the windows and drowned the cold with steam and cheap whiskey. The place was neutral ground supposed to be. Black porters ate beside white bookies. Everyone kept their eyes down and their hands visible. Bumpy Johnson did not come looking for trouble. He sat alone at the back table, coat still on, hat tipped forward, waiting on a plate that had gone cold. He was in Chicago for one reason only: to deliver numbers money from Harlem to a man who moved it west without asking questions. No speeches, no meetings. In by nightfall, out by morning, the door opened hard. Boots stamped snow onto the tile. Conversations thinned. A tall white man stepped inside with two others behind him. He wore a camel hair coat and a flat cap pulled low. His jaw was thick, scar split across the chin like a second mouth. His name was Frankie DeLuca, Han enforcer for a South Side outfit that didn't believe in neutral ground. Frankie scanned the room and smiled when he saw Bumpy. He walked straight to the back. "Didn't expect to see you here," Frankie said, loud enough for the tables nearby to hear. "You lost." Bumpy didn't look up. "I'm eating." Frankie laughed once. "In my city." That was the why. Chicago was Frankie's street, and Frankie needed to remind everyone of it, especially a black man from New York who didn't bow when he walked. Frankie leaned in, close enough that Bumpy could smell the anise on his breath. "You people pass through here like you own it." The fork paused midair. Bumpy raised his eyes. Calm, measuring. "Step back." Frankie didn't. He slapped Bumpy across the face. Not a backhand, an open palm. Loud, wet. The crack echoed off the tin ceiling and snapped every head in the room toward them. Silence fell so hard it felt physical. The insult wasn't the pain. It was the message. This wasn't a fight. It was a warning delivered in public on purpose. Frankie wanted witnesses. He wanted Bumpy to swallow it. Bumpy stood. Chairs scraped as people shifted away from the table. Someone whispered a prayer. The owner of the cafe ducked behind the counter and stayed there. Frankie grinned. "Sit down." Bumpy didn't. Frankie's right hand drifted to his coat pocket. The two men behind him spread out, one toward the door, one toward the bar. Trapped. Anyone in that room could see how this ended. Bumpy reached into his own coat slowly and placed a folded napkin on the table. Inside it, exact change for the meal he hadn't finished. "I'm leaving," Bumpy said. "You're in my way." Frankie laughed again, but this time there was a flicker behind it. He hadn't expected that tone. He hadn't expected Bumpy to stand tall after the slap. "You think you walk out?" Frankie said. "After that?" Bumpy stepped past him. Frankie grabbed his shoulder. 4 minutes later, one of them would be dead. But in that moment between the slap and the grab, every person in the Regent Cafe understood the same thing. If Bumpy turned around, someone would have to decide whether to help him or survive. At the far end of the bar, wiping the same glass for the third time, stood Samuel Sam Rossetti, 26 years old. Narrow shoulders, dark circles under his eyes that no amount of sleep fixed anymore. He wasn't supposed to be working nights, not with his mother coughing blood into handkerchiefs back at their apartment on Taylor Street. But night shifts paid extra, and extra meant medicine that delayed the inevitable by weeks instead of days. Sam had been born on the South Side, Italian, Catholic, and poor enough to learn early that survival came before pride. His father had died in a rail yard accident when Sam was 14. Since then, Sam learned to keep his head down, his mouth shut, and his hands busy. That was why Frankie DeLuca liked him. Frankie paid the Regent Cafe to let Sam work the bar. Not officially. Off the books. Sam poured drinks and listened. He remembered names, faces, arguments. And when Frankie needed something passed along, a message, a rumor, a time, Sam was careful and fast. Sam hated it, but Frankie paid cash. And cash bought medicine. When the slap landed, Sam's hand froze mid-wipe. He knew Frankie's moods. The slap meant Frankie was testing something. Testing how far he could go in front of witnesses. Testing who would flinch. Sam glanced toward the back table. The black man, Bumpy, Someone whispered stood perfectly still. No shaking, no raised voice. That scared Sam more than shouting would have. Frankie grabbing the man's shoulder was worse. Sam's eyes flicked to the coat pocket. He knew the shape of the gun there. He'd seen Frankie pull it out before, casual as lighting a cigarette. He also knew the Regent's rule. No blood inside if it could be helped. Bad for business. Bad for everyone. The owner caught Sam's eye from behind the counter. Don't move. Sam's chest tightened. If this turned into shooting, the police would come. And police asked questions. They checked papers. They shook down anyone without protection. Sam didn't have protection. He had a sick mother and a rented room and a boss who would vanish the second sirens wailed. Frankie spoke again. You heard me. Sit. Bumpy didn't. Sam saw it then, the tiny shift of weight in Bumpy's stance. Not anger. Balance. Like a man stepping onto ice he already knew would hold. This wasn't a bluff. Sam's mind raced through options. If he shouted, Frankie might shoot him first. If he ran, the door was blocked. If he stayed frozen, he'd be trapped in whatever came next. But there was another detail Sam couldn't ignore. The two men with Frankie were wrong. Their eyes weren't on Bumpy. They were scanning the room, counting exits, watching hands. Nervous. That meant they didn't expect what was about to happen. Sam reached under the bar and touched the panic bell with his fingertip. One press would ring upstairs where the owner's cousin slept with a shotgun. Another press would signal the back alley lookout. But Frankie hated alarms. Hated surprises he didn't control. Sam pulled his hand back. His mother's face flashed in his mind. Lips cracked. Her voice that morning. Don't get mixed up in things that get you killed. Then Bumpy spoke, quiet but sharp. Let go. Frankie tightened his grip instead. Time narrowed. Sam noticed something else, something almost invisible. The back door, the one that led to the alley, wasn't locked. Someone had propped it earlier to smoke. Cold air seeped through the crack. An exit. But only if someone created a distraction. Sam swallowed hard. He could drop a glass. Shatter it. Draw eyes. Give Bumpy half a second. Or he could stay exactly where he was and live to bring medicine home. Frankie leaned closer to Bumpy's ear. 4 minutes, he murmured. That's all you get. Sam felt his heartbeat in his throat. The clock above the bar ticked once. Loud in the silence. Frankie's hand stayed clamped on Bumpy's shoulder, fingers digging through wool. Not squeezing yet. Claiming, like a man resting his boot on something he intended to crush. Sit, Frankie said again, softer now. Dangerous soft. Bumpy didn't turn his head. You don't want this here. Frankie smirked. You think I care where it happens? That was a lie. And everyone in the room knew it. The Regent Cafe wasn't just neutral ground, it was a listening post. Deals passed through its walls. Names floated out its back door. Blood inside meant heat for months. Sam saw Frankie hesitate for the first time. It was small. A breath. A flick of the eyes toward the owner's counter. Frankie wanted control, not chaos. He wanted witnesses, not consequences. Sam understood then. Frankie was stalling. The 4 minutes weren't for Bumpy. They were for backup. Sam's stomach dropped. He scanned the room again, sharper now. The man near the door, Frankie's runner, kept glancing at his watch. The one by the bar had shifted closer to Sam's end, blocking him in. Too deliberate. The alley lookout would already be moving. Sam's choice just got narrower. Bumpy spoke again. You let go now, we both walk. Frankie leaned in, voice low enough that only Bumpy could hear. I don't walk away from this. That was the moment. Not the slap. Not the grab. The moment Frankie decided the ending in his head, and it didn't include Bumpy breathing. Sam's fingers trembled against the glass he was holding. He could feel it coming the way sailors feel weather change. The room itself seemed to tense. Chairs angled subtly outward. People leaned back, clearing space without standing. Nobody wanted to be close. Sam caught the eye of the owner again. The man's face was gray. He shook his head once. A warning. Don't. Sam looked back at Frankie. Frankie nodded toward him. Almost casual. A command. Pour a drink. Act normal. Don't interfere. Sam reached for the bottle. His hand slipped. The glass fell, not dropped, but not fully thrown either. It clipped the bar edge and shattered across the floor. The sound was sharp, sudden. Everyone flinched. Frankie swore and turned his head just enough. That half-second was everything. Bumpy moved. He didn't swing. He stepped. Twisted his shoulder forward and down, slipping Frankie's grip like water through fingers. Frankie stumbled a half-step, surprised. The man by the door reached for his coat. Sam's heart hammered so hard he thought he might pass out. Bumpy pivoted, finally facing Frankie. Their eyes locked. Frankie recovered fast. Too fast. He lunged again, this time with intent, hand already pulling metal free. The gun snagged on the lining. Bumpy saw it. So did Sam. And Sam saw something else, something no one else noticed yet. The runner by the door wasn't coming in. He was backing out. Slow, careful, like a man leaving before the real trouble started. Sam realized it at the same time Bumpy did. This wasn't just Frankie's move. It was sanctioned. Someone higher had approved the insult, the slap, the escalation, and the cleanup afterward. Frankie was disposable. A message with legs. The gun finally came free. But Frankie's smile was gone now. His eyes were wide. He'd just understood the same thing. He wasn't supposed to walk out either. Bumpy stepped closer instead of back. Frankie hissed, "You should have stayed seated." Sam felt the weight of the room tip forward, like the edge of a cliff. Someone in the back screamed. The back door creaked wider as cold air rushed in. And outside, in the alley, footsteps started running toward the cafe. The first shot never came. That was the mistake. Frankie DeLuca had lived his whole adult life on instinct: pull, fire, finish. But when the gun cleared his coat, when his finger tightened, the sound he expected didn't happen. The weapon clicked, dry. For a fraction of a second, Frankie didn't understand. His brain lagged behind reality, still waiting for the noise that always followed. His eyes flicked down to the gun like it had betrayed him. It had. Bumpy moved. Not fast. Precise. He stepped inside Frankie's reach, jammed his forearm up under Frankie's wrist, and drove his shoulder into Frankie's chest. The gun skidded across the floor, spinning, disappearing under a table. The room erupted. Chairs overturned. Glass shattered. Someone screamed again, louder this time. The two men with Frankie rushed forward, but too late, and without coordination. One slipped on the spilled drink. The other hesitated, eyes darting toward the alley. Bumpy grabbed Frankie by the lapels and slammed him backward into the edge of the bar. Frankie gasped. Air knocked clean out of him. "Where are they?" Bumpy asked. Voice low, steady, terrifyingly calm. Frankie laughed, choking. "You already know." Bumpy hit him again. Harder. Sam was frozen behind the bar, hands braced against the wood. His body screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't answer. He saw blood at Frankie's mouth. Saw fear finally break through the bravado. Footsteps thundered in the alley now. 3, maybe 4 men. Close. Too close. Bumpy heard them too. He leaned in, forehead nearly touching Frankie's. "You weren't supposed to make it past the slap," Bumpy said. "That's why the gun's empty." Frankie's eyes widened. That was the twist. The one nobody in the room had seen coming. Frankie wasn't the executioner. He was the proof. Proof that a message had been delivered. Proof that a line had been crossed. Proof that when the bodies were counted later, no one would ask questions about why Frankie DeLuca ended up dead in a cafe he shouldn't have touched. The door burst open. Cold air and men with coats and guns flooded the room. "Down!" someone shouted. Panic exploded. People dropped to the floor. Plates shattered. The owner screamed from behind the counter. Sam ducked instinctively, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The newcomers didn't aim at Bumpy. They aimed at Frankie. 2 shots rang out in rapid succession. Frankie jerked in Bumpy's grip, body seizing, eyes going glassy before he even hit the floor. Blood sprayed across the bar. Warm and dark. Bumpy let go and stepped back just as Frankie collapsed. Silence followed, not peace, but shock. The kind that leaves ears ringing. The men with guns scanned the room quickly, efficiently. One of them locked eyes with Bumpy for a brief, charged second. Then he nodded. Not respect. Confirmation. They turned and ran back into the alley, gone as fast as they came. It was over. Except it wasn't. Sam slowly lifted his head. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. He stared at Frankie's body on the floor, at the life leaking out of him, staining the tiles. Frankie had been loud, cruel, dangerous. But he'd also paid Sam, had handed him cash without asking questions, had promised protection, even if it was a lie. And now he was dead. Bumpy turned toward the bar. Sam flinched. Their eyes met. For a moment, Sam thought Bumpy might run, or threaten him, or say nothing at all. Instead, Bumpy reached into his coat and placed something on the bar. Money. More than Sam had ever seen at one time. "For the mess," Bumpy said. Sam swallowed. "The police, they won't come," Bumpy replied. "Not tonight." That scared Sam more than the gunshots. Bumpy leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You dropped the glass." Sam felt exposed. Seen. Bumpy nodded once. "That's why I'm standing." Then he turned and walked toward the back door, stepping over Frankie's body without looking down. Sam stared after him, chest tight, because now he understood the real cost of what he'd done. He hadn't saved a man. He'd helped reveal who was meant to die. And when the questions started tomorrow, when names were whispered and blame assigned, Sam Rossetti would be part of the story, whether he wanted to be or not. Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance, not coming closer, circling. And the worst part wasn't that Frankie was dead. The body stayed on the floor for 11 minutes. No one touched it. Frankie DeLuca lay twisted near the bar, one arm bent wrong, eyes half open like he was still trying to understand what went wrong. Blood crept slowly toward the drain in the floor, thin and deliberate, as if even it didn't want to make a scene. Sam sat on the floor behind the bar, knees pulled in, staring at the money Bumpy had left. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He hadn't picked it up yet. It felt heavier than it looked. The owner finally stood. He didn't shout, didn't cry. He moved like a man 10 years older than he'd been an hour ago. "Everybody out," he said. "Now." No arguments. Chairs scraped. Coats were grabbed. People avoided the body as they filed past, eyes forward, mouths shut. Witnesses leaving a memory they'd swear they never had. When the cafe emptied, the owner locked the door and turned the sign to closed. He looked at Sam. "You didn't see anything," the owner said. Sam nodded automatically. The owner's gaze dropped to the money. "You don't take that." Sam swallowed. "I need it." The owner's jaw tightened. "That money means you're part of it." Sam's throat burned. "I was already part of it." The owner didn't argue. He just turned away and started cleaning the blood with a rag that would never be clean again. Sirens passed outside, close enough that red light flickered through the windows. They didn't stop. They never did. Sam finally reached out and took the money. It felt warm. That night, Sam didn't go straight home. He walked the long way, circling blocks, checking reflections in windows. Every footstep behind him sounded too loud. Every shadow felt intentional. When he reached his apartment, his mother was awake, coughing softly in the dark. "You're late," she said. "Work ran long." He handed her the medicine without explaining how he got it. She took it with shaking hands. "You look pale." "I'm fine." She studied his face longer than he liked. "Be careful, Sam." He nodded, but the word felt useless now. The next morning, the papers said Frankie DeLuca was found dead in an apparent dispute between criminal elements. No names, no cafe, no witnesses. By afternoon, word spread anyway. Frankie hadn't failed. He'd been used. And the man who walked out alive wasn't supposed to. Sam heard the whispers at the market, in the church basement, in the alley behind his building. Who tipped him off? Who slowed it down? Who was in the room? Sam kept his head down, but inside something had changed. He had crossed a line he couldn't step back over, and the worst consequence wasn't fear. It was certainty. Chicago didn't talk about Frankie DeLuca the next day. It adjusted. By noon, his name stopped opening doors. By evening, it stopped closing them. Men who had taken his calls let them ring now. Runners who once waited outside his haunts found new corners to stand on. Territory didn't more net redistributed. The Regent Cafe reopened 2 days later. Fresh sawdust covered the dark stain on the floor. The owner moved slower, spoke less. People ordered quietly and paid exact change. Nobody mentioned the night Frankie died, but everyone chose different seats. Sam came back to work because he had no choice. Staying home would have been noticed. He felt eyes on him constantly measuring, weighing. Men he'd poured drinks for 100 times now studied his hands, his face, his reactions. Not curiosity, assessment. On the third night, a man Sam didn't recognize sat at the bar and ordered water. Didn't drink it, just watched the room. "You work here long?" the man asked. "Couple years," Sam said. The man nodded, like that answered something else entirely. "Busy night." Sam wiped the bar. "They usually are." The man left a coin on the counter and walked out without touching the glass. Outside, Sam saw him speak briefly with 2 others. One of them glanced back through the window at Sam. That was when Sam understood the shift. Before, Frankie's name had protected him by accident, by proximity. Now there was no name attached to Sam at all. That made him dangerous or disposable. Across the city, the story changed depending on who told it. Some said Frankie got sloppy. Some said Chicago sent a message east. Some said Bumpy Johnson had walked into a trap and out of it by luck alone. Nobody said the gun was empty on purpose. Nobody said Frankie was bait. And nobody mentioned the bartender, which meant they were still deciding. A week later, Sam found a folded note tucked into his coat pocket after work. No signature, just an address and a time. Tomorrow, midnight. Sam stared at it for a long time before tearing it in half, then tearing it again, then realizing that didn't matter at all. That night, he told his mother he might be gone late again. She touched his hand. "You're scared." He nodded. "Then listen carefully," she said. "Fear doesn't mean stop. It means choose." Midnight came whether Sam wanted it or not. He stood on the corner of the address from the note, heart pounding, breath fogging in the cold. A black car idled at the curb. The back door opened without a word. Sam hesitated. If he walked away, he'd be hunted. If he got in, he'd be claimed. He stepped inside. The door shut. As the car pulled away, Sam realized the aftershock wasn't about Frankie's death at all. The car didn't take Sam to a warehouse or a back room. It took him to a hospital. Cook County, after midnight. Quiet halls that smelled like disinfectant and fatigue. The man in the front seat finally spoke. "Third floor," he said. "Ward C." Sam's chest tightened. They stopped outside a room with the lights low. Through the glass, Sam saw his mother asleep, and the 4th taped to her arm. A nurse adjusted the drip, checked a chart, and left. The man leaned close. "She'll get what she needs now. Regular. Clean. No delays." Sam turned, confused. "Why?" "Because you were there," the man said, "and you didn't talk." Sam shook his head. "I didn't do anything." The man smiled slightly. "Exactly. That was the cost. Not loyalty. Not courage. Silence." Weeks later, Sam left the Regent Cafe for good. No goodbye. No explanation. He took a job filing paperwork for a man whose name never appeared on letterhead. He never carried a gun. Never raised his voice. But when questions needed to disappear, Sam knew where to send them. As for Bumpy Johnson, Chicago remembered the slap, remembered the death. But the part that mattered never made it into stories. The gun that didn't fire. The man who was meant to die instead. The bartender who paid without bleeding. Years later, Sam would still see Frankie's face when he closed his eyes. Not angry. Surprised. Because the truth was simple and cruel. Frankie survived the slap. He just didn't survive what it revealed. If you want more stories where one moment quietly destroys several lives at once, subscribe and stay sharp.